Hello, so this film follows on straight from the one I've done before, and it's this subject that is coming up for me repeatedly, and the subject is memory. And a lot of the reasons why I feel particularly unable to draw a definite conclusion about the subject of the previous film is to do with memory. And it all came to a head when I read this work of fiction quite recently. And a lot of fiction writers are really good because they spend a long time researching the books they write and create, and they read a lot themselves, and when something comes up significant, as it clearly did for this writer, she became fascinated by memory, and she spoke about what she discovered from her researches, and it tied in with other sources I've got, but I want to link in straight away with a really personal experience. Having a conversation with a member of my family about an event that happened in the past at the beginning of the millennium. And I had a really clear picture in my mind exactly when this event happened. It was just around the time my ex-wife was dying, really shortly before she died, and I was completely convinced that the timing of this event was then. And I had a bit of a disagreement with a member of the family about it, and they had a different feeling. No, it wasn't then. And a while later, some days later, it occurred to me that this event was recorded on the film and actually published as a DVD. And I had a feeling I probably still had that DVD. I don't have a DVD player, so I couldn't play it, but it's up in the attic. I thought, go and have a poke around in the attic. And when I did, I discovered that I was completely wrong. That event took place a few years later than what I thought it did. So that had already brought the subject up, but I had a really well-defined memory in my mind, and it was blatantly wrong. And I want to throw something else in, which is if you ask people in services like the police, for example, where evidence is very important and people need to give statements about things that happen, then one of the first things you discover, if you actually take the trouble to find out, you'll discover that the police have a very poor opinion of witness statements, particularly if it's an event that takes place in broad daylight outside. There's a number of witnesses, they all see the same thing, the same event unfolding. There's a very poor correlation between the different witnesses and what they say. And the police are very clear about this. It's not people are deliberately trying to obscure the truth or give false impressions or distort. No. It's part of the human memory. The way it works is it is so much more subjective than what we like to believe. We really would like to believe that there's such a thing as objective truth, and that people's memories are really reliable unless they get an awful disease like dementia and Alzheimer's. And then of course we're up shit creek, we get that. Well no, it really isn't that simple. What I've learned is that everyone's memory, even people with good memories, they cannot be relied upon. And in fact in neuro-linguistic programming, this is very well known. They talk about 3 states of existence: deletion, distortion and generalization. So our memories can delete segments of what actually happened, they can distort it, and they can come up with utter generalizations which end up being perhaps the biggest distortion of all. So what is the situation we have there? So we all like to believe that our memories are sacrosanct and that what we remember is absolutely the God's honest truth. Well, I really want to put it to you, it may not be. Maybe it's a lot more subjective than you think. Now this ties right in with shamanism. People who train with me at a particular point, they get the opportunity to watch a lot of material. It's about It's about 15 different films I've made. So it's something that requires considerable commitment, dedication, time and energy and devotion to do this work. And it's called Change Your Story, Change Your Life. And the information originates from my teacher's teacher, so it's in my lineage. And the point is, what all human beings do is we make up stories. And the stories we make up, the more that we tell these stories to ourselves and also to other people, the more of a deep groove gets created in the memory, until we can have the situation whereby something which was totally fictional, and we're not talking about a person that deliberately lived their life living lies, we're talking about someone who really does their best to be truthful and honest at all times, they end up with this completely distorted picture. And that becomes one of their many stories. And one of the most profound stories I ever came across was with, and I know one person doesn't like me to talk about this, I'm just going to do it anyway. Don't mind ruffling feathers, but the woman I married who died, mother of my 2 children, this happened to her. She was told a story by a doctor about her health, and what she did is she played this story over and over and over again in her mind, and she told the story to many people over a very long period of time, until that story became such a deep groove that it literally altered her reality and brought into the full manifestation her illness and her demise and her leaving the earth. And that all came from some words that the person in authority spoke to her. So that shows that we're talking about a big subject here when we talk about stories, when we talk about how memory works, how it operates. And one of the things I would say is truth. Everyone has their own truths, because we all have our own stories. We all have our own memories of common events as well as our individual events. So one of the signs of sanity I personally feel is worth cultivating is to realise that maybe you really were convinced that that thing genuinely did happen. How about just putting it down to that's your memory? Might not actually be true, but that's how you remember it. So you honour the memory that you have, but you don't insist it's absolutely true. And one thing that really helped me on this one was with my mother, because as her cognitive abilities deteriorated and continued to get progressively worse, one of the things I really noticed about her is she was completely unwilling to accept that any of her memories were incorrect. If she remembered it the way she remembered it, it had to be true. There was no other possibility to consider. And I do feel, with hindsight, that was part of the etiology, the underlying symptomatology of her condition. So that's my advice to you. Be aware of the power we all have to tell ourselves and each other's stories. Stories can heal, stories can kill, stories can maim, stories can do all sorts of things. Stories can uplift us, give us new possibility for ourselves and our lives. So, memory. Keep with the idea of being subjective, and also give yourself the possibility to change memories in the light of information that comes to you. Thank you very much. All the love to you.